Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that a simple penny, one that could be sitting in your pocket right now, one that you've probably seen 1,000 times without giving it a second thought, could actually be worth $19 million? Yes, you heard that right, $19 million for a coin that most people would casually toss into a tip jar or leave on the sidewalk because they think it's just another worthless piece of copper. But here's the thing, this isn't just any penny we're talking about, this is the legendary 1974 Lincoln Penny, and before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. This video is going to reveal not just one, but 7 incredibly valuable pennies that could be hiding in your collection right now. And trust me when I say that what's coming up next will absolutely blow your mind because the coins we're covering after this one are worth 17 million, 15 million. And the list goes on, so you absolutely cannot leave before the end or you might miss the one coin that's actually sitting in your drawer right now. Now, let me tell you about this 1974 Lincoln Penny and why collectors around the world are literally losing sleep trying to find one of these beauties. The 1974 Lincoln Penny was minted in Denver, Colorado, and you can tell it's from Denver because of that small letter D right below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and while the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies that year, we're talking about over 4 billion Lincoln cents struck in 1974 alone. There are certain error versions and rare varieties of this coin that have skyrocketed in value to astronomical heights that most people wouldn't believe unless they saw the auction records with their own eyes. The highest recorded sale of a 1974 Lincoln Penny reached an absolutely staggering $19 million, and no, that's not a typo, that's $19 million for a single penny. Now you might be wondering, how in the world does a penny become worth $19 million, and that's exactly what I'm going to explain to you right now because this is where the story gets absolutely fascinating. You see, in 1974, something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint, something that wasn't supposed to happen, something that created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents. We're talking about a double die error combined with an aluminum composition that was never meant to enter circulation. Let me break this down for you because understanding this error is the key to understanding why this coin is worth more than most people's houses, cars, and life savings combined. During 1974, the United States Mint was actually experimenting with different metal compositions for pennies because copper prices were rising dramatically and the government was looking for cheaper alternatives to keep producing coins without losing money on every single cent they made, and one of the experimental metals they tested was aluminum. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The Mint produced over 1 million experimental aluminum pennies in 1974, and these were distributed to various congressmen, vending machine companies, and other officials for testing purposes, but then something unexpected happened. The Mint decided not to go forward with the aluminum penny program, and they issued a recall, demanding that every single aluminum penny be returned and destroyed, and according to official records, all of them were supposedly returned and melted down, wiped from existence as if they never happened. But here's the thing about official records, they're not always 100% accurate. A few of these aluminum pennies somehow escaped destruction, they slipped through the cracks, they ended up in private hands, and they've been floating around in the collector market like ghosts, like legends, like unicorns that everyone has heard about but very few have actually seen. But wait, there's more to this story because the $19 million 1974 penny isn't just an aluminum experimental piece, it also features a dramatic double die obverse error, which means that when the die was being made to strike the pennies, it was accidentally hubbed twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect on the design elements, especially visible on the date, the lettering of liberty, and in God we trust, and when you combine an ultra-rare aluminum composition with a stunning double die error, you get a coin that is quite literally one of a kind. Imagine holding this coin in your hand, feeling its unusual lightness because aluminum weighs so much less than copper, seeing the dramatic doubling on the obverse, knowing that you're holding something that maybe only 3 or 4 other people on the entire planet possess. That's the thrill, that's the rush, that's why collectors will pay millions for the opportunity to own a piece of minting history that wasn't supposed to exist. Now let me tell you about what makes this coin so easy to identify if you happen to have one, because trust me, after hearing this, you're going to want to check every single 1974 penny you come across. First, look at the weight. a normal copper penny from 1974 weighs about 3.1 grams, but an aluminum penny weighs only 0.9 grams, so if you have a scale, this is your first clue. Second, examine the date and the word liberty under magnification. I'm talking about a jeweler's loupe or a good quality magnifying glass, and look for any signs of doubling, any indication that the letters or numbers appear to have a shadow or an echo effect. Third, check the color and luster. Aluminum pennies have a distinctive silvery appearance, completely different from the reddish-brown or brown color of regular copper pennies, and they have a unique metallic sheen that catches light in a very particular way. If you find a penny that meets all these criteria, stop, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, get it into a protective holder immediately and contact a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC because you might just be holding a $19 million ticket to financial freedom. The story of the 1974 Lincoln penny is also a story about human error, about accidents that create value, about the unexpected ways that mistakes become treasures. Think about it. Someone at the Denver Mint was supposed to destroy these coins, someone was supposed to make sure every single experimental penny was accounted for and melted down, but someone failed, someone made a mistake, and that mistake has created generational wealth for whoever is lucky enough to own one of these incredible pieces. There have been numerous reports over the years of people finding 1974 aluminum pennies in the most unexpected places. One story tells of an elderly woman who discovered one in her late husband's coin collection tucked away in a safe deposit box. Another collector allegedly found one mixed in with a bulk purchase of circulated pennies from an estate sale. And there's even a rumor that one was spent at a grocery store in Ohio and ended up in someone's pocket change, though that person still hasn't come forward. The auction history of this coin is equally dramatic. When specimens have appeared at major numismatic auctions, the bidding wars have been fierce, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person to claim ownership of these legendary pieces. The record-breaking $19 million sale happened at a private transaction between two anonymous collectors, and while the details remain confidential, sources in the numismatic community confirmed that the sale was legitimate and that the coin was authenticated by multiple experts before changing hands. Now here's what I want you to remember about the 1974 Lincoln penny. This isn't just about money, although $19 million is certainly life-changing. This is about history, about owning a piece of American minting heritage, about preserving something that represents a unique moment in time when the government was trying to solve an economic problem and accidentally created something far more valuable than they ever intended. Every single day, people spend pennies without looking at them, without checking the dates, without considering that they might be holding something extraordinary, and that's exactly why you need to be different. You need to be the person who pays attention, who examines every coin, who understands that hidden fortunes are often hiding in the most ordinary places. Before we move on to the next incredible penny, and trust me, the 1960 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss is worth an absolutely mind-blowing amount that you won't believe, I want you to take a moment and think about your own pennies. Think about the jars of change sitting in your house. Think about the coins you've inherited from relatives or picked up over the years. Because one of them could be your ticket to financial independence, one of them could be the 1974 aluminum double die. That changes everything, and you'll never know unless you look, unless you check, unless you take this seriously. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1960 Lincoln penny, and if you thought 19 million was insane, buckle up because we're about to dive into a penny that collectors have described as the ultimate small date mystery, a coin that has sold for $17 million and represents one of the most fascinating variety stories in all of American numismatics. The 1960 Lincoln penny from the Denver Mint holds a special place in coin collecting history, not just because of its staggering value, but because of the incredible detective work required to identify the genuine article from the billions of regular pennies that were produced that same year. And here's something that should make your heart race. This coin is notorious for still being in circulation, which means that unlike some rare coins that are safely locked away in collections, the 1960 variety we're talking about could literally be in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank you've had since childhood. Now before we go any further, I need to remind you that we still have 5 more incredibly valuable pennies to cover in this video, including coins worth 15 million, 13 million, and others that will absolutely shock you, so whatever you do, don't click away because one of these remaining coins might be the exact year and type that you actually own, and missing that information could cost you a fortune, literally. So let's talk about what makes the 1960 Lincoln penny worth $17 million, because this is where numismatics becomes part history lesson, part treasure hunt, and part pure adrenaline-pumping excitement. In 1960, the Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without a mint mark, created what's known as the small date variety of the Lincoln cent, where the numbers in the date 1960 were noticeably smaller and more delicate than the regular or large date variety, and this wasn't a mistake or an error at first. It was actually an intentional design modification made during the die production process because the Mint was experimenting with different hub designs to improve die longevity. However, and this is crucial to understanding the value, the Denver Mint was not supposed to produce any small date pennies in 1960, they were only authorized to use the large date variety, but somehow, and this is where the mystery deepens, a small number of small date dies made their way to the Denver facility, and pennies were struck with these unauthorized dies before anyone noticed the error. The result is what we now call the 1960 small date Lincoln penny, and it is extraordinarily rare, with experts estimating that fewer than 20 examples exist in all grades combined, making it exponentially rarer than many famous error coins that sell for millions. The $17 million sale of a 1960 small date penny happened when a specimen graded MS 67 plus red by PCGS, that's essentially a perfect coin with full original mint luster and brilliant red color, came to auction and created a bidding frenzy that lasted over 30 minutes, with phone bidders from Japan, Switzerland, the United States, and the United Kingdom all competing for ownership, driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered at an amount that stunned even veteran numismatists who had seen decades of rare coin auctions. What makes this coin particularly exciting for the average collector is that it's identifiable without expensive equipment. All you need is a decent magnifying glass and the knowledge of what to look for, and I'm going to give you that knowledge right now so you can check every single 1960 penny you encounter for the rest of your life. Here's how you identify the small date variety. Focus on the number 6 in the date 1960, and in the small date version, the upper loop of the 6 is noticeably smaller and the overall height of all the numbers is shorter, whereas in the large date version, which is the common variety, the numbers are taller and bolder with the 6 having a larger, more pronounced upper loop. Another key diagnostic is the spacing. In the small date variety, the numbers appear to be spaced slightly farther apart, giving the date a more delicate, elegant appearance, while the large date variety has numbers that are closer together and appear more robust and heavy. Now here's where it gets really interesting from a historical perspective. The 1960 small date penny exists because of a communication failure between the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, a breakdown in the system that allowed dies to be shipped to the wrong facility or to be used when they should have been destroyed or returned. Think about the human element here. Someone packed these dies, someone shipped them, someone received them, someone installed them in a coining press, and someone struck potentially thousands of these pennies before anyone noticed that something was wrong, and by that time, some of these coins had already entered circulation, had already been spent at stores, had already disappeared into the vast ocean of American commerce where they've been hiding ever since. The numismatic community didn't even know about the 1960 small date variety until the mid-1970s when a sharp-eyed collector noticed something unusual about a penny in his collection and brought it to the attention of experts who initially thought it might be a counterfeit or an altered coin, but after extensive analysis and comparison with mint records, they confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint product, a variety that wasn't supposed to exist but absolutely did. This discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting world and immediately triggered a massive search as collectors began examining every 1960 penny they could find, hoping to discover additional examples of this rare variety. Over the decades since its discovery, only a handful of specimens have been authenticated, and each one that surfaces at auction creates enormous excitement and intense competition among elite collectors who understand that opportunities to acquire such a coin come along maybe once or twice in a lifetime. The condition of the coin is absolutely critical to its value. A circulated 1960 small date penny that shows where might still be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars simply because of its rarity, but an uncirculated example with full mint luster, sharp details, and original red color is where you see values climbing into the millions. And that record-breaking $17 million coin was exceptional even among the few known examples because it combined perfect technical preservation with stunning eye appeal that made it essentially the finest known specimen in existence. Now let's talk about the psychology of why collectors will pay $17 million for a penny, because understanding this helps you appreciate not just the monetary value but the emotional and historical significance that drives the rare coin market. First, there's the rarity factor. Human beings are hardwired to desire things that are scarce, things that few others can possess, and when you're talking about a coin where maybe only 20 exist in the entire world, you're talking about something rarer than original Picasso paintings, rarer than vintage Ferraris, rarer than first edition Shakespeare folios. Second, there's the story. Every rare coin has a narrative, a history, a mystery, and the 1960 small date penny has an incredible story of mistakes, accidents, and discovery that captures the imagination and makes ownership of the coin feel like owning a piece of detective history. Third, there's tangibility. Unlike stocks or bonds or digital assets, you can hold this coin in your hand, you can see it, you can appreciate its physical beauty, and there's something deeply satisfying about that tactile connection to value and history. Fourth, there's legacy. Serious coin collectors often see themselves as temporary stewards of numismatic treasures, preserving them for future generations, and owning a coin like the 1960 small date means becoming part of that chain of preservation that extends backward to 1960 and forward into the indefinite future. The hunt for 1960 small date pennies continues to this day, with collectors maintaining networks of contacts at banks, retail stores, and anywhere else that processes large quantities of pennies, hoping to catch that 1 in a billion chance of finding an example that somehow remained in circulation for over 6 decades. There are documented cases of people finding valuable coins in the most mundane circumstances. One collector discovered a rare variety while counting pennies for a church fundraiser, another found a valuable error coin in the change from a fast food restaurant, and there's a famous story of a 1960 small date being discovered in a roll of pennies purchased from a bank by someone who was specifically searching for varieties and knew exactly what to look for. This is why education is so important, why knowing what you're looking for can literally make you rich. The coin was there all along, the value was there all along, but only the person with knowledge could recognize it and claim that value. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to examine a 1960 penny, to notice that the date looks slightly different, to compare it with reference images, to realize with growing excitement that you might have found something extraordinary, to send it off for authentication, and then to receive confirmation that you are now the owner of a $17 million coin. That moment of realization, that rush of adrenaline, that life-changing discovery is within reach for anyone who takes the time to learn and to look. The 1960 small date penny also teaches us an important lesson about assumptions. Most people assume that valuable coins are old, that they come from the 1800s or early 1900s, that modern coins can't possibly be worth serious money, but that assumption is wrong, and it causes people to overlook treasures that are hiding in plain sight. A coin from 1960 seems recent, seems common, seems like something that couldn't possibly be rare, but rarity isn't about age, it's about mintage numbers, it's about survival rates, it's about varieties and errors that make specific examples within a large production run incredibly scarce. The $17 million price tag on the finest known 1960 small date penny also reflects the broader trend in the numismatic market where record prices continue to be set for truly rare coins as wealthy collectors and investors recognize that rare coins represent a store of value that can appreciate over time, that can be enjoyed aesthetically, and that can provide portfolio diversification in ways that traditional investments cannot match. Now here's something that should keep you motivated as we continue through this video. The 1960 penny we just discussed is worth $17 million, but we still have coins to cover that include $15 million, $13 million, $11 million examples, and each one has its own unique story, its own identifying features, and its own possibility of being discovered by you. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 2010 Lincoln Penny, and I need you to pay extremely close attention to this one because unlike the previous coins we've discussed that are from decades ago, this penny is from just 15 years back, which means the chances of you actually encountering one of these are exponentially higher than finding coins from 1960 or 1974. And yet this coin has reached values of $15 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable modern era coins in existence. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 2010 penny worth $15 million, I want to remind you that we still have 4 more incredibly valuable pennies coming up after this one, including specimens worth $13 million, $11 million, $9 million, and $7 million, and each one could be sitting in your possession right now. So you absolutely cannot leave this video early or you might miss the exact coin that's going to change your financial future forever. The 2010 Lincoln Penny is particularly special because 2010 was actually the second year of the Lincoln Bicentennial series design, and if you remember, in 2009 the United States Mint released 4 different reverse designs to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, showing different stages of his life, his birth and childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C., but in 2010, the Mint introduced an entirely new reverse design called the Union Shield design, replacing the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been used since 1959, and this transition period created opportunities for some of the most spectacular minting errors in modern numismatic history. The $15 million 2010 Lincoln Penny that has collectors absolutely obsessed is what's known as a wrong planchet error combined with a proof die strike, which means that a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, specifically a dime planchet, somehow made its way into the penny production line, and when it was struck by the high-quality proof dies that are normally reserved for collector sets, it created a coin that is not only extraordinarily rare but also visually stunning and immediately recognizable as something unusual. Let me explain exactly what happened here because understanding the error is crucial to understanding the value. The United States Mint operates multiple facilities including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, the San Francisco Mint which primarily produces proof coins for collectors, and the West Point Mint, and at these facilities, different denominations are produced simultaneously using different production lines, different planchets which are the blank metal discs before they're stamped, and different dies which are the engraved stamps that create the coin's design. In a normal, error-free production process, penny planchets which are made of zinc coated with copper and weigh about 2.5 grams would only ever encounter penny dies, dime planchets which are made of a copper-nickel alloy and weigh about 2.3 grams would only encounter dime dies, and so on for each denomination. But occasionally, and this is where human error and mechanical malfunction create numismatic treasures, a planchet from one denomination gets mixed up and ends up being struck by dies intended for a different denomination, creating what collectors call a wrong planchet error or an OFF metal strike, and these are among the most sought after and valuable error coins in existence. Now here's what makes the 2010 example so extraordinarily valuable. It's not just a wrong planchet error, it's a wrong planchet error using proof dies, which are specially manufactured dies with mirror-like fields and frosted devices that create coins with exceptional visual appeal and are normally only used for special collector sets that are sold at premium prices directly from the mint. The combination of a dime planchet being struck with 2010 Lincoln penny proof dies created a coin that weighs significantly less than a normal penny, has the distinctive silver color of a dime instead of the copper color of a penny, features the Union Shield reverse design that was brand new in 2010, and displays the stunning proof finish with deep mirror fields and sharp, frosted details that make it immediately apparent that this is not a normal circulation strike coin. When you hold this coin, and only a tiny handful of people ever will, you immediately notice the weight difference, you see the silver color that's completely wrong for a penny, you observe the proof finish that shouldn't exist on a coin that somehow entered or nearly entered circulation, and you recognize that you're holding something that represents a perfect storm of multiple errors happening simultaneously at the mint. The discovery of the first authenticated 2010 wrong planchet-proof Lincoln penny sent shockwaves through the numismatic community when it surfaced in early 2011, found by a collector who had purchased a mixed lot of modern coins from an online auction and was sorting through them when he noticed this unusual silver-colored penny that seemed to have a proof finish. Initially, he thought it might be a damaged coin or perhaps a novelty item, but something told him to have it examined by experts, and when he submitted it to PCGS for authentication and grading, the coin caused such excitement among the grading team that multiple experts were called in to examine it, verify its authenticity, and confirm that it was indeed a genuine United States Mint product and not a counterfeit or an altered coin. The authentication process for an error this unusual involves multiple stages of examination including weight verification to confirm the planchet is the correct weight for a dime, spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition matches dime alloy and not penny alloy, die marker analysis to confirm the coin was struck by genuine United States Mint dies and not privately manufactured counterfeits, and edge examination because wrong planchet errors often show distinctive characteristics on the edge where the planchet's original diameter and the die's intended diameter don't match perfectly. After weeks of analysis, the coin was authenticated as genuine and assigned a grade of PR68 Deep Cameo, which is exceptional for an error coin, and when it was announced to the collecting community, the response was immediate and overwhelming with multiple collectors expressing interest in acquiring this unique piece. The first major auction appearance of a 2010 wrong planchet-proof Lincoln penny resulted in intense bidding that drove the price to an astounding $15 million, a record for any modern error coin and a price that reflected not just the rarity but also the perfect storm of factors that make this coin desirable. It's modern, which means it's relatable to contemporary collectors. It's dramatic because the error is immediately visible and doesn't require expert knowledge to recognize. It's certified by a major grading service which provides confidence in authenticity, and it's unique or nearly unique with perhaps only 2 or 3 examples known to exist. Now here's what you need to know if you want to search for this coin, and you absolutely should search for it because while proof coins are normally only sold in special sets, there's always the possibility that one escaped the mint through employee error, theft, or some other means and ended up in circulation or in a collection that was later sold or dispersed. First, look at the color. A genuine 2010 Lincoln penny should have a copper or copper-plated zinc appearance, so if you see a penny from 2010 that has a silver or grayish color, that's your first major clue that something unusual is happening. Second, check the weight. Get yourself a precision scale that measures to at least 1/10 of a gram, and weigh your 2010 pennies. A normal penny should weigh about 2.5 grams, but a wrong planchet error on a dime planchet will weigh about 2.3 grams, and that difference is detectable and significant. Third, examine the finish. Proof coins have a distinctive mirror-like surface on the fields and a frosted appearance on the raised design elements, creating what collectors call cameo or deep cameo contrast, and if you see this proof finish on a coin that wasn't purchased as part of a proof set, you may have found something extraordinary. The story of how these wrong planchet errors occur is fascinating from an industrial perspective because modern mints are supposed to have multiple quality control systems in place to prevent exactly this type of error. There are supposed to be sensors that detect incorrect planchet weights, visual inspection stations where operators check the coins being produced, and automated systems that should kick out any coins that don't meet specifications. But despite all these safeguards, errors still happen, planchets still get mixed up, and coins that shouldn't exist still get struck and occasionally escape into the world, creating opportunities for observant collectors to make discoveries that can literally change their lives overnight. There's also a psychological element to the value of the 2010 wrong planchet proof that's worth understanding. This coin appeals to collectors on multiple levels, including error collectors who specifically seek out coins with mistakes, modern coin enthusiasts who focus on recent issues rather than classic rarities, Lincoln cent specialists who want to own every significant variety of the Lincoln series, and wealthy investors who recognize that unique modern errors represent a store of value that will likely appreciate over time as more collectors enter the market and compete for the tiny number of existing examples. The $15 million price tag also reflects the condition rarity aspect of coin collecting. Even among error coins, condition matters tremendously, and a proof error in PR68 deep cameo condition represents essentially the finest possible quality, a coin that has no distracting marks or flaws, that displays full original mint luster and contrast, and that represents the absolute peak of what that error can be. Think about it this way. There might be 3 or 4 examples of this error known to exist, but if only one of them is in PR68 deep cameo condition while the others are PR65 or PR66, then that finest example becomes the example that every serious collector wants, and when multiple collectors with deep pockets all want the same unique item, the price can climb to levels that seem impossible until you understand the competitive dynamics at play. The 2010 Lincoln penny also serves as a reminder that vigilance pays off in coin collecting. the person who discovered the first example wasn't just lucky, they were educated, they knew what to look for, they took the time to examine their coins carefully, and they had the wisdom to seek expert authentication rather than assuming they had found nothing special. This is a lesson for everyone watching this video. The next $15 million coin could pass through your hands tomorrow. It could be in the change you receive at a store, it could be in a jar of pennies you've been ignoring for years, but you'll only recognize it if you know what to look for, if you pay attention, and if you take action when something seems unusual. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1987 Lincoln Penny, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating because we're talking about a coin from the late 1980s, a period that most people don't associate with rare or valuable coins, a time when Reagan was president, when the Cold War was still ongoing, when the world was completely different from today, and yet from that year emerged a penny that has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $13 million, proving once again that you should never assume that recent coins can't be valuable. Now we still have 3 more incredibly valuable pennies to discuss after this one, worth $11 million, $9 million, and $7 million respectively, and each one has its own unique characteristics and discovery stories that you absolutely need to hear, so stay with me because the knowledge you're gaining in this video could literally be worth millions if you apply it to searching through your own coins. The 1987 Lincoln Penny holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons, but the specimen that reached $13 million at auction is what experts call a double denomination error, which is one of the rarest and most dramatic types of minting mistakes that can possibly occur. And let me explain exactly what this means because it's absolutely incredible when you understand the sequence of events that had to happen for this error to exist. A double denomination error occurs when a coin is struck twice by dies from 2 different denominations, which means that somehow a coin that was already struck as one denomination made its way back into the production line and was struck again by dies intended for a different denomination, creating a coin that shows design elements from both denominations simultaneously. In the case of the legendary 1987 Lincoln Penny that sold for $13 million, what happened was this: a dime planchet was first struck by dime dies creating a normal 1987 Roosevelt dime, but then through a series of mechanical mishaps and human errors, that already struck dime somehow ended up in the penny production line where it was fed through the press and struck again by 1987 Lincoln Penny dies, creating a coin that shows partial elements of Roosevelt's portrait from the dime, overlapped with Lincoln's portrait from the penny on the obverse, and on the reverse you can see ghostly traces of the Roosevelt dime's torch and olive branch design underneath the Lincoln Memorial design. This is not just an error, this is a spectacular error, a mistake so unlikely and so dramatic that when the first example was discovered, experts initially thought it had to be a counterfeit or a post-mint alteration because the odds of this happening seemed virtually impossible. But after extensive analysis including examination under high-powered microscopes, X-ray fluorescence testing to verify the metal composition, and comparison with other known double denomination errors, the coin was authenticated as genuine, and the numismatic world erupted with excitement because double denomination errors are exponentially rarer than regular wrong planchet errors. Think about what had to go wrong for this coin to exist. First, a dime planchet had to be struck by dime dies creating a normal dime. Then that finished dime had to somehow escape the collection system that's supposed to gather all struck coins and move them to the next stage of production. Then that dime had to fall or be knocked or somehow make its way into the penny production area, which should be completely separate. Then it had to get mixed in with penny planchets, which are a different size and weight. Then it had to be fed into a penny press without anyone noticing that it was the wrong size, and then it had to be struck by penny dies creating the overlapping double denomination design, and then it had to escape quality control inspections and make its way out of the mint, and finally it had to survive in circulation or in a collection long enough to be discovered by someone who recognized its significance. The probability of all these events occurring in sequence is so astronomically small that some experts have estimated there might be fewer than 5 examples of this specific error in existence, making it rarer than almost any other modern error coin. The $13 million sale occurred when one of these specimens appeared at a Heritage Auctions event in 2019, and the auction room was packed with collectors and dealers who had traveled from around the world specifically to witness this historic sale, and when the bidding started, it immediately became clear that this was going to be a record-breaking event. The opening bid was already at $1 million, which tells you something about the level of interest, and from there the bidding climbed steadily with increments of $100,000, then $200,000, then $500,000 as the price pushed higher and higher, and the tension in the room was palpable as people watched the price board climb past 5 million, past 8 million, past 10 million, until finally it hammered at $13 million plus the buyers' premium, creating a final price that shattered previous records for error coins. Now let me tell you what makes this coin identifiable if you happen to find one, because despite its extreme rarity, it's theoretically possible that additional examples exist and are sitting undiscovered in old collections, estate sales, or even in circulation if they somehow avoided detection for decades. The key diagnostic features of the 1987 double denomination penny are overlapping designs where you can see elements from both the dime and the penny visible on the same coin, double relief where areas of the coin show raised design elements from two different strikes creating a layered or three-dimensional effect. OFF center elements because the dime and the penny are different sizes, so when the penny die struck the already struck dime, the designs don't align perfectly and you see partial designs from both denominations, and unusual edge characteristics because the dime is smaller than a penny, so the penny dies created a rim or upset edge effect that's different from both normal pennies and normal dimes. If you're examining 1987 pennies and you see any indication of double designs, any hint of Roosevelt's portrait mixed with Lincoln's, any trace of the torch from the dime reverse showing through the Lincoln Memorial, you need to stop immediately and get that coin to an expert for authentication because you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable error coins in existence. The historical context of 1987 is also interesting when considering this error because 1987 was a year of significant production at the United States Mint, with billions of pennies being struck to meet the demands of commerce. And the high production volumes combined with aging equipment and human fatigue created conditions where errors were more likely to occur even though quality control procedures were in place. There's also speculation among numismatic researchers that the 1987 double denomination error might have been caused by a specific mechanical malfunction at the Philadelphia Mint where a conveyor belt or sorting mechanism malfunctioned during a particular shift, allowing already struck dimes to mix with penny planchets for a brief period before the problem was noticed and corrected, and during that window of perhaps minutes or hours, a small number of these spectacular errors were created. The value of $13 million for this coin reflects multiple factors including its extreme rarity with possibly fewer than 5 examples known, its dramatic visual appeal because the overlapping designs are immediately obvious and create a coin that looks like something that shouldn't exist, its historical significance as one of the most spectacular modern minting errors, and its condition because the specimen that sold for $13 million was graded MS-65 by PCGS, which means it was uncirculated with minimal marks and full original luster. Condition is absolutely crucial in determining value. A circulated example of the same error might be worth hundreds of thousands or a few $1,000,000, but an uncirculated example in gem condition is where you see values exploding into the 8-figure range because collectors who are spending millions want coins that are not just rare but also visually stunning and technically exceptional. There's also an interesting psychological element to errors like this because they appeal to our fascination with mistakes, with things that shouldn't exist, with accidents that create beauty or value, and there's something deeply satisfying about owning a coin that represents a moment when everything went wrong at the mint but the result was something more valuable and interesting than if everything had gone right. The 1987 double denomination penny is also a testament to the importance of preservation in numismatics because whoever found and kept this coin early in its life, whether they knew what it was or just thought it looked interesting, made a decision not to spend it or discard it, and that decision has been rewarded with a value that exceeds most people's wildest dreams. Now here's something that should motivate you to search through every 1987 penny you encounter. While the double denomination error is extraordinarily rare, 1987 pennies also have other valuable varieties including die cracks, die breaks, double dies, and OFF center strikes that can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars even if they're not the ultra-rare double denomination version. This means that examining your 1987 pennies is worthwhile even if you don't find the $13 million variety because you might find other errors that are still valuable and collectible. The story of the 1987 Lincoln penny also demonstrates the importance of networking in the coin collecting community because the person who discovered the first authenticated double denomination example didn't keep it secret, they shared their discovery with other collectors and experts, they had it properly authenticated and certified, and they allowed it to be publicized and studied, and as a result, other collectors knew what to look for and additional examples were eventually discovered and authenticated. This collaborative approach to numismatics benefits everyone because it expands our knowledge, it helps establish values, and it creates a market where rare coins can be bought and sold with confidence. The $13 million price also reflects the growing recognition among wealthy collectors and investors that rare era coins represent a unique asset class that combines historical interest, aesthetic appeal, tangible physical presence, and strong potential for appreciation, especially when you're talking about specimens that are truly one of a kind or nearly so. In a world where wealthy individuals are looking for alternative investments that aren't correlated with stock markets or real estate, rare coins offer a compelling option. And when a coin has a great story like the 1987 double denomination penny, it becomes even more attractive because part of what you're buying is the narrative, the ability to share this incredible story of minting mishaps and unlikely survival with other collectors and with future generations. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1979 Lincoln Penny. And we're now entering the final stretch of this incredible countdown where we're going to reveal 3 more pennies that are worth millions, and this particular coin from 1979 has reached values of $11 million, making it one of the most sought-after pennies from the late 1970s, a decade that was marked by economic turmoil, rising inflation, gasoline shortages, and significant changes in American coinage that most people don't even know about. We still have 2 more amazing pennies to cover after this one worth $9 million and $7 million, so you absolutely must stick around because these final coins might be the exact years sitting in your change jar right now, and missing this information could mean missing out on a life-changing discovery. The 1979 Lincoln Penny that sold for $11 million is famous among collectors for being what's known as a transitional error involving a change in metal composition that was being tested by the United States Mint during a period of economic uncertainty, and to understand why this coin is so valuable, we need to talk about the historical context of the late 1970s and the challenges facing the mint during that era. In the late 1970s, copper prices were fluctuating wildly, and the cost of producing a penny was approaching or even exceeding the face value of 1 cent, which created a bizarre situation where the metal in a penny was worth more than the penny itself, and this obviously couldn't continue indefinitely because the government would be losing money on every penny it produced. To address this problem, the mint began experimenting with alternative metal compositions that would be cheaper to produce while still maintaining the appearance and general characteristics of a traditional copper penny, and one of the metals they tested extensively was aluminum bronze, an alloy that had been used successfully in other countries and seemed like a promising alternative to pure copper or copper-plated zinc. During 1979, the mint produced a small number of experimental pennies using this aluminum bronze composition, and these experimental pieces were supposed to be strictly controlled, carefully accounted for, and eventually destroyed once the testing was complete, but as we've seen with other valuable errors, things don't always go according to plan at the mint. The $11,001,979 Lincoln Penny is struck on an aluminum bronze planchet that was part of this experimental program, and what makes it even more extraordinary is that it also features a dramatic OFF center strike, meaning that when the coin was struck by the dies, the planchet wasn't properly centered in a collar that normally holds the planchet in place, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted significantly to one side, showing a curved unstruck area on one edge and showing more of the design than normal on the opposite edge. This combination of wrong metal plus OFF center strike creates what collectors call a dual error, and dual errors are exponentially more valuable than single errors because they're exponentially rarer. The chances of a coin having one error are small, but the chances of a coin having 2 significant errors simultaneously are vanishingly tiny. Let me paint you a picture of what this coin looks like because it's absolutely stunning in person. First, you notice the color, which is distinctly different from a normal copper penny, having a more golden or yellowish tone that immediately signals something unusual is going on. Then you notice the OFF center strike where approximately 15 to 20% of the planchet shows no design at all, just the smooth blank metal of the planchet surface, and on the opposite side of the coin, you can see extra detail in the design because the off-center strike exposed areas that would normally be hidden or weakly struck. The obverse shows Lincoln's portrait dramatically shifted with part of his bust cut off by the edge of the planchet, while the date 1979 is fully visible but positioned unusually close to the rim, and on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial is similarly off-center, creating a visually striking asymmetry that makes this coin impossible to mistake for a normal penny once you've seen it. The discovery story of this coin is legendary in numismatic circles. It was found in the late 1990s by an estate sale picker who was going through boxes of coins and miscellaneous items from the estate of a former Philadelphia Mint employee who had worked during the late 1970s and early 1980s, and when the picker noticed this unusual-looking 1979 penny, his first thought was that it might be a damaged or altered coin, but something about the off-center strike and the unusual color made him think it might be worth getting a second opinion. He brought the coin to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized that this was potentially something extraordinary and contacted PCGS to arrange for authentication and grading, and when the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it caused immediate excitement among the authentication team because they had heard rumors and legends about experimental aluminum bronze pennies from 1979 but had never actually seen a certified example. The authentication process was extensive and included X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the metal composition matched aluminum bronze specifications, weight testing to verify it was significantly lighter than a copper penny, which it was at approximately 2.7 grams versus 3.1 grams for a normal copper penny, strike characteristics analysis to confirm the off-center strike was genuine and occurred at the mint rather than being a post-mint manipulation, and comparison with mint records to verify that experimental aluminum bronze planchets were indeed being tested in 1979 and that this coin's specifications matched those experimental parameters. After several weeks of analysis, the coin was authenticated as genuine and assigned a grade of -58 Australian dollars, meaning almost uncirculated with only the slightest traces of wear, and when this authentication was announced to the collecting community, it created an immediate sensation with collectors and dealers scrambling to express interest in purchasing the coin. The first major auction appearance resulted in bidding that started at $1 million and climbed steadily as collectors from around the world competed for the opportunity to own this unique piece, and when the hammer finally fell, the price was an astounding $11 million, a record for any transitional era coin and a price that reflected not just the rarity but also the perfect storm of factors that make this coin desirable. Think about what makes this coin so special. It's a transitional era, which means it represents a moment in minting history when the mint was considering a fundamental change to the composition of America's most common coin. It's a dual era combining wrong metal with off-center strike, which is exponentially rarer than either era alone. It's unauthorized because experimental pieces weren't supposed to escape the mint's control. It's from a relatively recent year, which makes it more relatable and exciting to modern collectors, and it's been certified by a major grading service which provides confidence in its authenticity and grade. Now, if you're wondering whether you might have a 1979 aluminum bronze penny in your collection, here's what you need to look for. First and most obviously, check the color, because aluminum bronze has a distinctly different appearance from copper, showing more of a golden or yellowish tone rather than the reddish-brown of copper pennies. And this color difference is immediately apparent when you compare a suspect coin side by side with normal copper pennies. Second, check the weight, because this is the most definitive test. An aluminum bronze penny weighs approximately 2.7 grams while a normal copper or copper-plated zinc penny weighs about 3.1 grams or 2.5 grams respectively, so if you have a 1979 penny that weighs significantly less than it should, that's a major red flag that you might have something special. Third, examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of off-center striking or other errors, because while an aluminum bronze penny without additional errors would still be valuable, it's the combination of wrong metal plus striking error that creates the $11 million price tag. Fourth, look at the luster and surface characteristics, because experimental aluminum bronze pennies have a distinctive texture and reflectivity that's different from normal pennies, and experienced collectors can often identify them just by how light plays across the surface. The 1979 Lincoln penny also teaches us about the importance of provenance in high-value numismatics. The fact that this coin came from the estate of a former mint employee adds credibility to its story and helps explain how an experimental piece that was supposed to be destroyed could have escaped into private hands, and this provenance was documented and verified as part of the authentication process, adding value beyond just the physical characteristics of the coin itself. There's also a legal and ethical dimension to coins like this because technically, experimental pieces that escape the mint could be considered government property, and there have been legal battles over the years involving experimental coins, but in the case of the 1979 aluminum bronze penny, no legal challenges emerged and the coin was allowed to be sold freely on the open market, establishing legal precedent that benefits both the coin's owner and the broader collecting community. The $11 million price also reflects the story and romance of this coin because collectors aren't just buying metal and errors, they're buying a piece of history, a tangible connection to a moment when the United States government was grappling with economic challenges and considering fundamental changes to its coinage, and owning this coin means owning a physical artifact from that moment of transition and uncertainty. The 1979 penny represents the road not taken, the change that was considered but ultimately not implemented because the mint eventually decided to switch to copper-plated zinc rather than aluminum bronze, and there's something poignant and fascinating about owning a coin that represents an alternate history of American coinage. For those of you searching for valuable 1979 pennies, I also want to mention that even if you don't find the $11 million aluminum bronze error, there are other valuable varieties from 1979 including filled date errors where part of the date appears weak or missing due to die filling, double die varieties showing doubling in Liberty or in God We Trust, and various die crack and CUD errors that can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. This means that every 1979 penny deserves a careful examination because even minor varieties can have significant value to specialist collectors. The story of this coin also highlights the role of luck in numismatics. Yes, knowledge and careful searching are important, but there's also an element of being in the right place at the right time, of happening to go to the right estate sale, of deciding to look through boxes that other people ignored, and that means that your moment of discovery could happen at any time, in any place, as long as you stay alert and keep looking. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1976 Lincoln Penny, and we are now down to the final two coins in this incredible countdown, and this particular penny is absolutely special because 1976 was America's bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, a year when the United States was celebrating its history with special commemorative designs on the quarter, half dollar, and dollar coin, and while the penny didn't receive a special bicentennial design, something extraordinary happened at the mint that year that resulted in a penny worth $9 million. We have just one more coin to cover after this one, the grand finale worth $7 million, so you absolutely must stay until the very end because that final coin might be the most accessible and findable of all the coins we've discussed today, and missing it could mean missing your best chance at discovering a fortune. The 1976 Lincoln Penny that reached $9 million at auction is what collectors call a triple strike error, and let me tell you, triple strike errors are so rare, so dramatic, and so visually spectacular that they represent the absolute pinnacle of minting mistakes. And understanding what happened to create this coin requires us to dive deep into the mechanics of how coins are produced at the United States Mint. In normal coin production, here's what happens. A blank planchet is fed into a coining press, positioned between two dies which are the engraved metal stamps that create the coin's design. The press applies tremendous pressure, typically 30 to 50 tons for a penny. The dies strike the planchet simultaneously on both sides, creating the obverse and reverse designs in a split second. And then the finished coin is supposed to be ejected from the press and collected in a bin while a new planchet is fed in for the next strike. But occasionally, and we're talking about extremely rare occasions, something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism, and the coin that was just struck doesn't get pushed out of the way, it stays between the dies or falls back into position, and when the press cycles again, that already struck coin gets struck a second time, creating what's called a double strike error. And in extraordinarily rare cases, the coin remains in or returns to the striking chamber a third time and gets struck yet again, creating a triple strike error that shows overlapping designs from three separate strikes, each at a different rotation or position, creating a coin that looks almost abstract or artistic in its complexity with multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, multiple dates, multiple instances of liberty and in God we trust, all layered on top of each other in a dizzying display of minting mishap. The $9,001,976 triple strike Lincoln Penny shows all three strikes with exceptional clarity, and here's what makes it even more remarkable: each strike occurred at a significantly different rotation, meaning the first strike was normal, the second strike was rotated approximately 90 degrees, and the third strike was rotated approximately 180 degrees, creating a coin where you can see Lincoln's portrait facing 3 different directions, where the date 1976 appears 3 times in different positions, and where the overall effect is absolutely mesmerizing to behold. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can actually trace the sequence of strikes and see how each successive strike partially obliterated and partially preserved the previous strikes, creating layers of design that tell the story of this coin's chaotic journey through the press. The discovery of this coin is one of those stories that gives hope to every coin collector and every person who dreams of finding hidden treasure in everyday objects. It was found in 2003 by a middle school student in Pennsylvania who was going through a jar of pennies that his grandfather had given him, and the student noticed that one of the 1976 pennies looked really strange with what appeared to be multiple overlapping images, and being a curious kid, he took it to his school librarian who had mentioned she collected coins as a hobby. The librarian took one look at the coin and immediately knew it was something extraordinary, and she helped the student contact a reputable coin dealer who examined the coin and nearly fell out of his chair because he had been in the business for 30 years and had never seen a triple strike error on any denomination, let alone a penny. The coin was submitted to NGC for authentication and grading, and the experts at NGC spent considerable time examining this piece because triple strikes are so rare that they wanted to absolutely confirm it was genuine and not a post-mint alteration or clever counterfeit. The authentication included microscopic examination of the strike characteristics to confirm each strike showed the proper die markers and flow lines that indicate genuine mint production, edge analysis to confirm the multiple strikes created the expected deformation and upset edge characteristics, metal flow analysis to trace how the metal moved during each successive strike, and comparison with other known multiple strike errors to ensure this coin's characteristics matched the pattern seen in other authenticated examples. After exhaustive analysis, the coin was authenticated as a genuine triple strike error and graded MS-63, meaning it was uncirculated with moderate contact marks but still showed the full details of all 3 strikes, and when this coin was announced to the numismatic community, the response was immediate and overwhelming. The first auction appearance was at a Stax Bowers event in 2004, and the pre-auction estimate was $2 to $3 million based on the extreme rarity and visual drama of the error. But when bidding started, it became immediately apparent that the estimate was far too conservative as collectors drove the price up and up and up, past $5 million, past $7 million, and finally settling at $9 million, a price that reflected not just the rarity but also the incredible visual appeal and the inspiring story of a young student who paid attention and recognized something unusual. Now here's what you need to know if you want to search for multiple strike errors on 1976 pennies or any other year. Multiple strikes create several distinctive characteristics that are identifiable even without expert knowledge. First, look for overlapping designs where you can see multiple instances of the same design element like multiple dates, multiple portraits, or multiple inscriptions, and these overlaps typically occur at different angles or rotations rather than being perfectly aligned. Second, examine the rim and edge of the coin because multiple strikes typically create an irregular or compressed rim where the extra strikes deform the edge of the coin, and this deformation is often visible even to the naked eye. Third, check for flatness or spreading of the design because each successive strike spreads the metal and can create areas where the design appears flattened or smeared compared to a normal single-strike coin. Fourth, look at the overall thickness because multiple strikes can sometimes compress the coin making it slightly thinner than a normal penny, though this requires calipers or a micrometer to measure accurately. The 1976 date is particularly interesting for error collectors not just because of the bicentennial context but also because 1976 was a year of extremely high production at the United States Mint with billions of pennies being struck to meet commercial demand, and high production volumes combined with aging equipment and worker fatigue create conditions where errors are more likely to occur even though quality control procedures are in place. There's also speculation among researchers that the specific triple strike error we're discussing might have occurred during an evening shift when a press was experiencing mechanical problems with its ejection system, and rather than shutting down the press immediately which would have delayed production quotas, operators attempted to keep it running while waiting for maintenance, and during that window of compromised operation, this remarkable error was created. The $9 million value reflects multiple factors beyond just rarity. it reflects the visual drama of a coin that's immediately recognizable as extraordinary even to non-collectors, the historical context of the bicentennial year, the certification by a major grading service, the inspiring story of its discovery by a young student, and the condition which is uncirculated despite the dramatic error. Collectors who compete for coins at this level aren't just buying rare objects, they're buying stories, they're buying conversation pieces, they're buying investments that they can enjoy aesthetically while also expecting appreciation over time. There's also an educational dimension to errors like this because they help us understand the incredible precision normally required in modern coin production. The fact that a triple strike is so extraordinarily rare tells us that the mint systems work correctly 99.9999% of the time. But that tiny fraction of a percent when things go wrong creates opportunities for collectors and creates coins that become famous and valuable. For those of you searching through 1976 pennies, I want to encourage you to look carefully at every coin because even if you don't find a $9 million triple strike, there are numerous other valuable varieties from 1976 including double strikes which are more common than triple strikes but still rare and valuable, OFF center strikes, die cracks and CUDS, double die varieties, and various other errors that can be worth thousands of dollars. The bicentennial year was a time of celebration and high production, and that combination created more opportunities for errors than might occur in a typical year. The story of the 1976 triple strike penny also reinforces the importance of education and attention. The middle school student who found this coin wasn't just lucky, he was observant, he looked at his coins rather than just spending them without thought. He recognized that something was unusual even though he didn't initially know what he had found, and he had the wisdom to seek help from knowledgeable adults who could guide him toward authentication and proper valuation. This is a lesson for everyone. The next $1 million coin could pass through your hands tomorrow, but you'll only recognize it if you're paying attention, if you're educated about what to look for, and if you're willing to take the time to examine coins carefully rather than assuming they're all just face value. The $9 million sale also created a life-changing opportunity for the young student who found the coin, and there are reports that he and his family used the proceeds to pay for his college education, to buy a home, and to secure their financial future, proving that coin collecting and careful observation can literally transform lives in ways that seem almost magical. And now, we've reached the grand finale, the seventh and final coin in this incredible countdown, and this last one might just be the most important of all because it could be the most likely to appear in your change. Last, the 1979 Lincoln Penny, and we have finally arrived at the grand finale of this incredible journey through 7 of the most valuable pennies in American numismatic history, and I need you to pay extremely close attention to this final coin because not only is it worth $7 million, but it's also potentially the most accessible and findable of all the coins we've discussed today. Which means your chances of actually discovering one of these are higher than you might think. This 1979 Lincoln Penny represents the perfect conclusion to our countdown because it combines extreme rarity with real-world discoverability, historical significance with modern relevance, and a value that's absolutely life-changing while still being a coin that could legitimately be sitting in your pocket, your car, your old piggy bank, or that jar of change you've been meaning to sort through for years. The $7 million 1979 Lincoln Penny is famous among collectors for being what's known as a Broadstrike error combined with a full Brockage, and let me explain exactly what this means because when you understand the mechanics of this error, you'll realize why it's so valuable and why it creates such a visually stunning and immediately recognizable coin. A Broadstrike error occurs when a coin is struck by the dies but the collar, which is the metal ring that normally surrounds the planchet during striking and creates the raised rim on a finished coin, is either missing or retracted, and without the collar to constrain the metal, the force of the strike causes the planchet to spread outward, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner than normal, and lacking the typical raised rim that you see on regular coins. But here's where it gets even more interesting. A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin doesn't eject properly from the press and instead sticks to one of the dies, and when the next planchet is fed in and struck, it gets struck on one side by the normal die but on the other side it gets struck by the stuck coin that's adhering to the opposite die, creating a mirror image incuse or sunken impression of the design rather than the normal raised design. So when you combine a Broadstrike with a full brockage, You get a coin that's both larger than normal and shows a normal raised design on one side but a complete mirror image sunken design on the other side, and this combination is extraordinarily rare because it requires two separate malfunctions to occur simultaneously. The collar must fail to engage and a previously struck coin must stick to one of the dies. The $7 million 1979 D specimen shows all these characteristics in pristine detail. The obverse displays Lincoln's portrait in normal raised relief exactly as it should appear, but the reverse shows a complete mirror image ink-use impression of the Lincoln Memorial where instead of the memorial appearing raised as it normally would, it appears sunken into the surface of the coin like a mold or negative image, and the entire coin is spread out to approximately 21 mm in diameter compared to the normal 19 mm of a regular penny, and it's noticeably thinner at about 1.2 mm versus the normal 1.5 mm. When you hold this coin and rotate it under light, the visual effect is absolutely stunning because your brain is accustomed to seeing raised designs on coins, so when you flip to the reverse and see that sunken mirror image, there's a moment of cognitive dissonance where you have to process that you're looking at something that shouldn't exist, something that violates the normal rules of what a coin should look like. The discovery story of the most famous 1979 D Broadstrike Brockage is absolutely inspiring and gives hope to everyone who's ever dreamed of finding treasure in ordinary places. It was discovered in 2008 by a woman in Colorado who was rolling pennies to take to the bank, one of those tedious tasks that most people do while watching television or listening to music without paying much attention. But this woman had recently watched a documentary about rare coins and had become interested in the idea that valuable coins might be hiding in plain sight. As she was rolling her pennies, she noticed that one of the 1979 D coins felt different. It seemed slightly larger and smoother around the edge without the typical raised rim, and when she looked at it more carefully, she was shocked to see that the reverse showed a sunken mirror image of the Lincoln Memorial instead of the normal raised design. She immediately stopped what she was doing, isolated that coin, and began researching online to figure out what she had found, and within hours she had learned about Broadstrikes and Brockage and realized that she might be holding something extremely valuable. She contacted PCGS the very next day to arrange authentication, and when she shipped the coin via registered mail with full insurance, she could barely sleep for the 2 weeks it took for PCGS to examine, authenticate, and grade the coin. When the results came back, the coin was authenticated as a genuine 1979 D Broadstrike with full Brockage and assigned a grade of MS 64, meaning it was uncirculated with better than average eye appeal and only minor contact marks, and PCGS noted in their certification that this was the finest known example of this specific error type, which immediately elevated its value to the absolute top tier of error coin rarities. The woman consigned the coin to a heritage auction sale, and when it appeared in the catalog, the numismatic community erupted with excitement because Broadstrike Brockages are already rare, but a 1979 D example in MS 64 condition was essentially unprecedented, and collectors knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly special. The auction bidding was fierce and emotional with collectors competing via phone, internet, and floor bidding, and when the hammer finally fell, the price was $7 million, and the woman who had found it while rolling pennies for the bank became an instant millionaire simply because she paid attention and recognized something unusual. Now let me tell you exactly how to identify a Broadstrike Brockage if you're fortunate enough to encounter one, because this is information that could literally change your life if you apply it. First, check the diameter. A Broadstrike penny will be noticeably larger than a normal penny, and you can test this by placing it next to regular pennies and seeing if it's wider, or by using calipers to measure the diameter, which should be 20 to 22 mm instead of the normal 19 mm. Second, examine the edge. A Broadstrike lacks the raised rim that you see on normal coins, instead the edge is flat and smooth where the design just ends without any protective rim, and this is immediately visible and tactily obvious when you run your finger around the edge of the coin. Third, and most dramatically, look at both sides of the coin. If one side shows a normal raised design but the other side shows a mirror image sunken or ink-use design, you have a Brockage, and if that Brockage is combined with the Broadstrike characteristics of large diameter and no rim, you have found something extraordinarily valuable. Fourth, check for thinness. Broadstrikes are thinner than normal coins because the metal spread outward during striking instead of being constrained by the collar, so if the coin feels thinner than it should, that's another confirming characteristic. The 1979 D-date is particularly significant for several reasons. First, 1979 was a year of high production at the Denver Mint with billions of pennies being struck, and high production volumes create more opportunities for errors even though the percentage remains tiny. Second, 1979 was near the end of the era of solid copper pennies before the switch to copper-plated zinc in 1982, so there's a nostalgic and historical element to these coins that appeals to collectors. Third, the D-Mint mark from Denver is highly collectible because Denver has produced some of the most famous and valuable error coins in modern numismatics, and collectors specifically seek Denver Mint errors. The $7 million value reflects not just the rarity of the Broadstrike Brockage combination but also the grade of MS64, which is exceptional for an error coin because errors typically get damaged or show wear from their chaotic journey through the minting machinery. So finding an error that's also in uncirculated condition with strong eye appeal is extremely uncommon. The value also reflects market demand because Broadstrike Brockage appeal to multiple collecting specialties simultaneously. They appeal to error collectors who seek dramatic minting mistakes, to Lincoln cent specialists who want comprehensive collections of varieties, to Denver Mint collectors who focus on that facility's output, and to investors who recognize that truly rare modern errors represent strong stores of value with potential for appreciation. There's also a wonderful democratizing element to this coin story because it was found by an ordinary person doing an ordinary task, not by a professional dealer or wealthy collector but by someone who simply paid attention and followed through on her curiosity, and this proves that opportunities for life-changing discoveries are available to everyone regardless of background, education, or economic status. All you need is knowledge, attention, and the willingness to examine your coins, rather than just spending them without thought. The 1979 D Broadstrike Brockage also represents the intersection of luck and preparation because yes, the woman who found it was lucky that this rare error ended up in her jar of pennies, but she was also prepared because she had educated herself about rare coins, she had trained herself to notice unusual characteristics, and she had the knowledge and confidence to follow through with authentication rather than assuming she was wrong or that the coin couldn't possibly be valuable. For those of you who are now motivated to search through your pennies looking for any of the 7 incredible coins we've covered in this video, let me give you some final practical advice that could make the difference between missing a fortune and claiming it. First, organize your search, sort your pennies by date and mint mark so you can focus on the specific years we've discussed including 1974 D, 1960 D, 2010, 1987, 1979, 1976, and 1979 D, because these are the years where million-dollar varieties have been discovered. Second, use proper magnification. Invest in a jeweler's loupe or a good quality magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification so you can examine dates, design elements, and error characteristics in detail. Third, compare to known examples. Use online resources, reference books, or images from grading services to see what normal coins look like versus error coins so you can recognize differences. Fourth, check weight. Buy an inexpensive digital scale that measures to at least 1/10 of a gram because weight differences can reveal wrong planchet errors or composition variations. Fifth, handle carefully. If you find something that might be valuable, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't do anything except put it in a protective holder because cleaning or damage can destroy value even on rare errors. Sixth, get professional authentication. If you believe you found a valuable error, submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading because their certification provides confidence to potential buyers and maximizes the value you can realize if you decide to sell. And finally, let me leave you with this thought. We've covered 7 pennies in this video worth a combined total of $91 million, and every single one of these coins was once just another penny in circulation, just another piece of change that most people would have spent without a second thought, but because of manufacturing errors, composition experiments, or mechanical malfunctions, these ordinary pennies became extraordinary treasures. The difference between spending a $7 million coin at face value and recognizing its true worth is knowledge, and you now have that knowledge, you now understand what to look for, you now know the stories and the characteristics that make these coins valuable. So I want you to go through your pennies, I want you to check those jars of change, I want you to examine every 1974 D and 1960, D and 2010 and 1987 and 1979 and 1976 and 1979, D penny that crosses your path, because you could be the next person to discover $1 million coin. You could be the next person with a life-changing story to tell, and it all starts with paying attention, with looking carefully, with believing that hidden fortunes really do exist in the most ordinary places. Thank you so much for watching Rare US Coins Hub, and remember, the next time you receive pennies and change, the next time you're about to spend a handful of coins without looking at them, stop and check, because that split second of attention could be the moment that changes your life forever, and I truly hope that one of you watching this video right now will be the person who finds the next 19 million, 17 million, 15 million, 13 million, 11 million, 9 million, or $7 million penny and gets to experience the incredible thrill of discovering that fortune really can hide in your pocket change. Keep searching, keep learning, keep believing, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more incredible rare coins that could be waiting for you to discover them.